Hey guys, I'm Dave. Today's video is going to take you through the first 2 months of the restoration of my 1958 Dodge Power Wagon during the months of March and April 2020. You're watching Parts and Restoration. Well, what do we have here? Another project, eh? She's pretty badass. About as badass as trucks come as far as I'm concerned. This guy has a couple of them. But this one here is bought and paid for, and I'm picking up a parts truck a little later on that's got a big old winch right in the front, like every Power Wagon needs. You guys are going to be seeing a lot more of this. Well, I'm calling it a night. Been busy tonight. I took some time and cleaned a lot of the surfaces on the truck, got everything degreased. This truck actually sat on underneath of a lift that had a leaking car, leaking oil on top of it for at least 5 or 6 months. So I cleaned a lot of the oil up, was able to remove the fenders, not the fenders, the hood, the fenders, to give myself good access to the engine, determine what engine I've got, determine my serial number with a lot of long looking. Through along all these edges where moisture had accumulated underneath the paint, in some of these cracks, and going with a wire brush, clean some of those out just because I don't want to look at them. Clean the windows, remove the fenders, like I said, clean them up. And yeah, very productive first day with the truck. Super exciting. Stay tuned for more. Wait, what, another one? Oh yeah, buddy. This is 2-for-1 special. 2 trucks, price of 1. This is my parts truck.
Ladies and gentlemen, over these last few months, we've all gotten to know and love Dangle Fridge. Introducing tonight, Dangle Fridge's love interest, Dangle Truck. How long will she last? No one knows. Stay tuned for more. So here's the deal, folks. I've got the, I cut and unscrewed the cab mounts, all 4 of them, and I've got this up in the air right now. I'm stopped because the steering column, which is right there, and the steering wheel are hooked in the firewall, and I can't really get much more lift out of it with my present rigging. Excuse me, I'm sick. So what I'm going to do is I've got my MoPar parts list, and I need to go in here and find steering, group 19. Pull that up real fast. And I just need to see an exploded view of how this thing's put together so I can see what the easiest thing to take apart is. Okay, so here's the exploded view of my steering assembly. Not really seeing anything that I want to go for as far as just loosening parts. There's some pretty substantial bolts on here. I really don't feel like digging into that yet. And as you can see, I really only need probably an additional 1.5 feet, which I'm pretty sure I can get if I just make these straps real tight. So I'm just gonna reset everything and we'll try again. So check out this beast. Freaking mean looking skateboard right here. I was able to get the cab off without readjusting. I needed to go a little bit higher up, and I completely maxed out the overhead hoist. I was able to kind of guide the steering wheel right through this little hump where the transmission goes underneath the firewall, and that worked out fine. This thing is super cool. As you can see, I had to disconnect everything before I got started. All the hoses and electrical that comes through the firewall had to get disassembled. The blue tape is markings where they connect to wires coming off the engine, headlights, like that. Just for reference, I'm not actually going to reuse that stuff. Underneath here, everything looks like it's in pretty decent shape. Not a whole lot of rot, a little bit. Found this cute little mouse house here. Guy was living pretty good. This is super soft. I don't even know what this is. It's like little fuzzies from someone's laundry or something. I don't know, but he was living good right in here for God knows how long. But anyway, now that I've got the cab off, I can really start digging into the mechanicals of the truck, which was my plan. I want to get this thing running and safe to drive. So brakes, engine, transmission, transfer case because it's 4-wheel drive. and I'm starting from the ground up. So this is where I need to be right now. So say hello to Dangle Cab, Dangle Fridge, Dingle Dangle, and more to come later.
What's up, gang? Quick little update. I'm here in the shop tonight after a fun couple days with my boys. So tonight's goal is to get the transmission off the truck. Here you can see the shifter. You've got right there is the park brake and the high and low for the transfer case. This is just bolted on with 4 bolts at this point. All the linkages are disconnected. I got it up on my my Harbor Freight engine crane. Just gonna pluck this thing up and plop it down around and get to it later. Really just trying to strip this whole frame, trans, and then engine, get them 2 rebuilt, and kind of go from there. So, yeah, that's all I got for now. See you in a bit. All right, everything's in position. I got this big old pry bar in here. I just want to push this trans off of its spindle here. And I think we're going to be free here in 1 second. And there she is. Berth. Free at last. Crank this thing up. Get it up out of the frame. All right, love it. This is a 4-speed Chrysler. What do you call it? I can't pump and think at the same time. Hey, yeah, 4-speed transmission. There's the word. Really good. Starting to look awful bare through here because the engine's out. This is the engine, 230 cubic inches of displacement, straight 6. 1954 Plymouth. This thing is crusty as you know what. But I'm glad to have it out. I've got an engine stand on order. I'm gonna start tearing this thing apart. Gonna be pretty cool. Oh, yes. Such satisfaction. Yes. It's been a very productive evening. I was able to pull the engine, which was one of my goals. Also pulled the transmission. Started taking the engine apart. Got the fuel pump separated. Took off the starter motor, valve covers, bell housing, the front, sort of like a mounting block there. Still got the engine hanging. I've got a engine stand on order. Was able to disconnect a few of the propeller shafts and universal joints. Here is the here's a transfer case that I unbolted and have separated now. Here's the transmission. Pulled that tonight. Basically, I've got myself a steerable skateboard up front here. Cab's hanging, engine's hanging, everything's in pieces. Gonna start cleaning this thing up. And yeah, making some good progress. Stay tuned. So with all these filthy parts that I've been working with, it really made sense to finally get myself a parts washer. So I don't even think it's too early to say this. This is a total game changer. For the last few years, I've been using spray-on solvent. Occasionally I'll soak something in a solvent bath and then, get it later. But to have constant flow of solvent happening in a contained space, this is incredible for me. Yeah, this is really going to improve my workflow. I'm really stoked on this. So this is exciting. I've gotten the clutch off of the flywheel here, and I'm looking to remove this flywheel. And once I've done that, I'm hoping that I can mount this engine in this engine stand. So things are actually happening today. Additionally, I'm running the heck out of this freaking parts washer, which is absolutely incredible. I don't know how I've gone this long in doing restoration on gross stuff without having a solvent part washer. This thing is absolutely insane. Check this out. So this is the steering wheel and steering gear. This whole steering gear box was completely encrusted in disgusting, filthy, dirty oil. And now it basically looks brand new with nothing but a wire brush and running a constant flow of solvent. Absolutely out of control. Well, this is a bit of a confessional here. I'm making a lot of rookie mistakes on this thing. So when I turned the engine over, it dumped oil and fluid all over the ground, which I should have anticipated, but I didn't because I've never done this before. And I also got a little bit lazy because I took 2 or 3 trips to Lowe's and Home Depot to get hardware for this to mount up, and they didn't have what I needed, and I didn't know where to mount it. I just got frustrated, and I just did 2 bolts. Now these bolts are super bent, and this thing is barely hanging on, so I'm keeping the engine hoist on there just to catch it when it eventually fails or decides to fail. Fortunately, I used grade 8 bolts on that, so hopefully we'll be okay for now. In the meantime, I'm trying to get this thing lighter, so I'm starting to strip parts, and eventually I'll get to cleaning up this mess. Rookie mistakes. Whew. Hell of a learning curve. Okay, here we go. Big reveal. And get this oil pan opened up, and I have not cracked this open yet. So let's see what we see. Oh yeah. A little dirty. But it doesn't look too bad. Overall, it's kind of what I expected. Hold on, let's get this off here. Okay, got a nice accumulation. Oh, gross. Nice little smiley face. Hello. Delicious. Oh, that is some really tasty stuff. Okay, let's have a look. So we've got the the oil pickup. This is where the oil actually gets sucked in from the very bottom. Never before have I been this grateful that someone hasn't taken care of their equipment. All of this sawdust that I've used to absorb the river of oil that flowed out of this thing when I turned it upside down was living inside of that cabinet saw that was never hooked up to vacuum, or to dust collection rather. All of that was inside the cabinet. Thank you very, very much. All right, back in the shop trying to get this thing finally broke down. Finally was able to pull the crankshaft nut off of the crankshaft. Getting the pulley off with a puller set from the old Harbor Freight, which is a pretty good set, to be honest. They do have a couple things that are decent. Let's get this thing off here, shall we? Okay, big reveal. Oh, wow. Surprisingly clean. Wow. Actually, looks really good. Holy crap. I will take that all day. Fantastic. Well, it was a long fight, but I was able to get the head off. Broke a few bolts along the way. Not a big deal. But I just want to show this to you guys so that in the hopes that maybe somebody that can diagnose engine problems, seeing what's going on here, might be able to give me some advice. Looks pretty nasty, that's for sure. A lot of water got in here, definitely. And maybe something this doesn't matter because I'm going to be replacing the very minimum piston rings, and I'm going to be putting new gaskets in, doing valve work, etc. But take a look. Let me know what you think. What's up, people? Another day above ground in the quarantine zone. Hope everybody is happy and healthy. Let's take a stab at this pile of filth. I want to get this in the parts washer and get it squeaky clean. I have a big old gloop right there. $20. Eat that whole thing right now. Whew. Busy night in the shop. Check it out. You're gonna see this in a second, but how is it that every time you make something super clean that was once really dirty, you just exchange the cleanliness of one thing for the cleanliness of something else? My shop is completely filthy, and that's okay. Here we go. Chrysler 230, straight six flathead, nice and clean, degreased top to bottom. I used spray-on degreaser, I used crud cleaner, I used wire hand brushes, I used a lot of wire brushes to get this nice and clean. I also have to give a huge thanks to one of the supporters of this channel here, I guess. Charlie Cool N from France, explained to me how to get my engine mounted up on the engine stand. Thank you, Charlie. Another great tool that I used getting this block clean was a really wide bladed chisel that's a little dull. I was using that to scrape away just the layers upon layers of nasty oil and grit. This is interesting. As I got it clean, I found this. I believe this is some build data. So at some point, this engine had its cylinders bored out, 40 over bore. And I don't know what this number means. We have, I believe that's F81832. I don't know if anybody that builds engines might be able to make odds and ends of that, but I'd be interested. But yeah, mostly degreased here. I'm going to do I'm actually going to do an electrolysis treatment on this engine just to get all of the oil galleys and passages clean and rust free. But that's enough for now. Going home, going to bed, and very happy with the way this thing is looking. Almost forgot. I knew someone was going to ask about this, so I was able to get the deck all cleaned up, and you can see there is some indentations where the combustion's actually happening. There's a little bit of pitting in a few of the spots here. Not super great. The valves look pretty rough. I don't know if they're salvageable. Maybe someone who knows more can advise on that. But yeah, there's definitely some wear on this deck. So maybe this needs to get sent to the machine shop and be decked. I was really hoping not to have to do any machine work on this, but now's probably the time to do it. On a positive note, the cylinder bores look pretty good. Kind of tough to tell from the video here. Oh, maybe not. Very little scoring, I would say. There are some up and down lines that you can see on here. There is a ridge on many of the cylinders just from where the cylinder went up to. But overall, I think they look pretty damn good.
Spray painting and can't find any masking tape? Throw some grease on there, and you will have a nice mask without any of the tape. Just gotta get in there real good and get all that paint off. You can get the rest of it in a second. Point proven. Not bad.
Listen, if you're anything like me, your mustache gets crazy from time to time. So one thing you can do is just keep a brush on hand and just kind of tame it back whenever it gets a little out of control. I prefer to do this 2 or 3 times a day just to stay looking my best, you know? Not bad. So there's the parts truck. She used to have a winch, which I have harvested off of her. It's taken me all day to get this thing off. Absolute pain in the butt. All the fasteners are hidden, not easily accessible. I tried going in with wrenches. That was too much. Everything was frozen, so I went and just cut them off. Here are the bumper extensions that are completely pitted out. I gotta clean these up and see how much metal is. I mean, they're really thick. It has that going for it. I think they'll be salvageable. The bumper is normally factory. It's 2 pieces. It's been bridged together here. Got to cut that apart. I may wind up scrapping that. And the winch unit itself has been repaired, and it's missing parts. So I need to look at some replacement parts. And yeah, this is going to be a project in and of itself, but the winch is what makes this truck so damn cool. All right, we got the drum off the winch. Let's see how we do. Oh, it's got a mind of its own. Winch bowling, take 2.
Okay, it seems to just want to do whatever it wants. It's not going to work out for me. You need to go straight. Here we go. And go. Yay! This is a lot of fun, but can't seem to go straight. That's okay. You suck. So what we have here is a Brayden MU2 winch. Comes standard on the Power Wagons. I'm just going through and seeing what I've got. These are the supports. I found a broken spacer that's supposed to space these two evenly apart. This is the back bracket. The front bracket is completely wallered out on bent. It's not supposed to be bent. So I'm gonna have to either make a new one of those or replace it. This this is the support for the end of this shaft here. It is completely bent, crooked, twisted. It's been repaired from a crack. And then there's an entire shifter fork assembly that's supposed to be in here that is just gone. So I'm gonna have to order some parts for this thing. Of course, I'm gonna replace the entire cable because who knows what kind of damage that's taken over the years, but at least I've got the main parts that will get me started. So I think it's worth mentioning that what makes the winch setup on the Power Wagons interesting is that these old trucks their winches are driven by PTO, or power takeoff. So what's happening is it's actually stealing some power right off the engine through a shaft that's powering the winch. So let's take a look. So power goes through the engine, it gets put into the transmission, and in this case, it's going right into the side of the transmission to a separate power takeoff unit. Pull it right onto the side of the trans. Now in the case of this truck, there's a PTO shaft coming to the rear, so I can power something off the back. These trucks were sometimes used for farm work, so that, pull something off the back. And then there's the PTO shaft running to the front for the winch. And you've got your power takeoff controls, linkages going into the cab thusly. And I always find this interesting because I'm not a mechanic, but let's take a look. So we've got our engine in the front. Engine power train comes back to the flywheel and the clutch. That's like the front part of the transmission. Here's your transmission. There's the PTO. And so transmission power comes all the way to the rear through this shaft and into the transfer case. The transfer case is spitting power sideways. So you've got the main drive line, and then it goes sideways, and you've got a shaft that goes to the front wheels to power the front four-wheel drive, and back to the transfer case, and to the back wheels to power the four-wheel drive. It's very interesting, and if you're a guy that likes to work on machines like I do and restore stuff, I think this is the ultimate project for restoration work. So many mechanicals, so many things to clean. I know a lot of the guys that follow along on this page are into restoring tools and machinery, and if you've done a lot of that and you find that work is satisfying, but you can do it in your sleep, or it's not as challenging as it used to be, taking on a vehicle, an old truck, to restore an old car is, I think, the ultimate challenge. There's so many individual systems and components that are all working together. It'll challenge your ability to think and prioritize, challenge your ability to organize a project. It's very space intensive, so it'll challenge your ability to manage the use of that space. Definitely something to consider. This is probably one of the most fun projects I've taken on, and I can't wait to have this as a driver when it's all done, something I can actually use and go out and kind of show off in the real world. Definitely consider it. It's a lot of fun. Calling all motorheads. So these are the Pistons. They all look like this. I think I read something about piston slap. This is some major where you can see the up and down streaking and where the lathe marks actually fade away from from what's going on. Now, I don't know what I'm looking at though. They all look like this. Is this bad? Is this usable? What's the next step? I took all the rings out. I'm getting them clean. I could reuse them if this is okay, but I don't know if it's okay. Tell me what to do, motor people. I need you. Here's another question, though. At the very top of the piston around that lip, there's very little wear except for on the one side. I just need someone to tell me what to do. I can get new pistons, so they're bored 40 over. The engine shows that there's some build data on there that says they've been bored 40 over. But yeah, let's talk pistons, people. While I have your attention, here's the crankshaft. So let's take a look together, you motorhead who knows what they're looking at, and me, dum-dum. Let's look together. Do we see anything concerning going on here? I think for the most part, these journals look pretty decent, but then again, I'm also retarded. No offense to retards. Seriously though, this is not my forte. These are very smooth. I can see some little polka dots on here from who knows what the hell. But the wear looks, I don't know what I'm looking at. Tell me what I'm looking at, people. Come on, help me. So it's silly, but I've actually been using this to keep my mustache straight because it really works. And this is in the car, so it doesn't bother me. I don't know. It's up. First shop task of the night is to remove the rest of these valve springs from the in-block valve train on this here engine. And to do that, I got to loosen up these adjusters for the valve tappets. So these adjust the height of how much the valve actually opens and closes. And so we're getting in there with some wrenches, drop these down, pull the springs, call a cab. Shouldn't be too bad. Okay, so that tappet's all the way down. So just get in there with a screwdriver and pry her on out. I don't think I broke anything. I'm just kidding. No, it came right out. So there's a valve and retention plate here. It kind of once this is all the way in, the valve has a couple of these. You can see these little jokers right down in here. These are like retention pieces that snap onto either side of the actual valve, and that holds it all together. Okay, all the valve springs are out. Now I got to lift up all these tappets, these lifter doodads, so I can take out the camshaft. Boom. So for all you out there who know nothing about engines like myself, the camshaft is what opens and closes the valves inside of your engine. You can see the lobes of these cams, these little lobes here, lifters right here, lift up the valves. They push on a thing that opens the valve. Also, you can see that gearing right there that powers the oil pump that keeps the oil flowing through your engine. So now it's time to take this sucker out. Yay! Okay, I'm super stoked on that. These are the valve tappets, and guys talk about having to have these things reground, and I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing, but these things are like really clean, like super duper insano clean, like they've been recently ground, like, well, they maybe have recently had some work done on them. Yeah, so I'm going to take these out, and I'm going to keep them in order, and I'm very excited about that. I probably don't have to keep them in order, but I just don't fucking know anything. Little trick by Evan Geezy that we talked about on the Rustoration podcast. So I've got it labeled, the front of the engine, and here are all my valve lifters, my tappets, all the way down in sequence, just held together by cardboard, and I used this chipping hammer to punch holes through. Too easy, organized, beautiful. Quick break from the engine to have some dinner. Who here likes Indian food? I love Indian food. But the fuckers didn't give me any silverware. So shit's about to get dicey. I might be eating with my hand. I might be eating with this chisel over here. I don't know.
We're gonna figure it out together. Stay tuned. Brilliant! So I need to remove some broken studs out of the block. These are studs that broke off when I was removing the head of the engine. So the plan here is to weld these nuts onto the studs, and heat from the welding operation will hopefully loosen those studs up enough that I can turn them off with a wrench after they're welded together. Never fails. Valve was cracked for the last 2 months, and I have no gas. Who's been there? Awesome. All right, next step. So I'm checking the head of the engine, the top, for flatness. So this is a precision ground straight edge. And what I'm doing is, I have this thing here is called a feeler gauge. This is a tiny, thin sliver of metal that is 4/1000ths of an inch thick. So you take 1 inch, divide it into 1,000 pieces. This is 4 pieces, all right? 4/1000. So I'm going through and I'm checking to see how flat this is. Now there is a 4/1000ths of an inch or larger gap right there, and there ought not to be. So what this tells me as I go through is that I'm gonna have to get this machine flat. Now we normally should be going diagonal, straight in multiple different locations across here to check for flatness. As you can see, there's some pitting in a lot of different locations across here. I think that the head gasket can kind of make up for some of that, but I think this is just going to need to be machine flat. Not a big deal. So we're over at the engine now, and I just took a very, very gentle wiring to the top of the block just to get all the carbon deposits off, because I want to go ahead and check this for flatness. I'm looking at a 2/1000th of an inch feeler, and we're not getting in there. It's just bouncing right off, which is exactly what we want to see. I got it. It's thinking about creeping in one little spot there. 2,000 though, man. Let's see what we got across the block. All right, this is really cool. So I measured all the way across straight. I did my diagonals both directions. This thing is flat. A 2/1000th of an inch feeler gauge did not make it through anywhere here, with the exception of some of these combustion chambers. You can see kind of the highlight of that where it's actually supposed to be open. All of these spaces between the bores here are all flat as can be. So within thousands, I'm real stoked on that. So I can leave that alone. This is way cool. So this is a dial bore gauge. So I need to measure a camshaft bearing, and I've input 1.968 on this micrometer, and I've got it dialed in on the bore gauge, so it's zeroed out. So when I go to put this in the bore, if it's below or greater than spec, I'll be able to read and see what it is based on it being zeroed out here at the actual spec of that bore. Super, super cool tool. All right, last bit of story for the night before I head home. This got our camshaft and our crankshaft. I started doing some numbers here, measuring the bearing surfaces versus the specifications here in the shop guide, shop manual. And it turns out that the camshaft's bearings are all within spec, within 2 to 4 thousandths of an inch of clearance, just as they ought to be. I got myself to the rear bearing, number 4 bearing on the crankshaft. It looks like that is also within spec, and so we're actually making some really getting some really good information here. Looks like I'm going to be able to, reuse some of these parts without a whole lot of additional machining. So that's fantastic. So we're learning a lot, we're having a good time, and that's what it's all about.
What's up, peoples? Have a look. It's kind of hard to photograph this, so I wanted to videotape it. You can see this is the bumper of the truck. There's 2 individual segments, that one and this one. They've been joined by a piece of angle that's been expertly cut and expertly scabbily welded together to bring these 2 pieces together. I'm going through right now, cutting the welds with my super safe angle grinder, and I'm just going through and breaking that weld apart so I can get these sections together. I also harvested these 2 triangle pieces from about 10 pounds each of scabby, rusty metal. I just buy replacement ones of these, but they're about $150 for a set of these 2, so why not just save the ones I got? Yeah, making good progress here. Just figured I'd give a quick update. Oh boy, that was fun. Okay, so I've got my bumpers free from their big old piece of angle. Some more random pieces of angle that were all cobbled together in order to turn this Power Wagon into a snowplow truck. I made a bunch of scabby brackets with angle iron and some just lovely welds, which I have cut and broken apart. Speaking of breaking apart, one of the tools I was using to pry this thing apart off an old jackhammer or something totally exploded. That was fun. But I used a cold chisel. This, I guess this is like a mineral hammer or something. I don't even know. It exploded when I hit it the wrong way, but it worked really well for separating and breaking these welds. So lots of fun. Probably saved myself $500 in salvaged bumper parts just off of that. Yay. So one night's work, and this is all the scrap metal that I generated. That is going to be a pretty penny. These old bumpers weigh a zillion pounds. Yay. Oh, what's going on? 2 hours in the shop, been working on the frame. Take a look. So, spent some time to give some love and attention to the front end of the frame, near the engine compartment, working my way back to where the cab sits, cleaning up the frame rails with some wire brushes on some of my hand power tools, namely the angle grinder with a cup wheel and the die grinder with the wire sticking off the front. Get into all the nooks and crannies. Worked out really well. Just wanted a satisfying project for the evening. Just 2 or 3 hours in the shop tonight, and I'm going home. Also, I mocked up these frame extensions that came off of the parts truck that's going to hold the winch bumper when the time comes for that. Just getting my way toward what I'm eventually going to be doing, which is removing all of the suspension, drivetrain, everything, and I'm going to sandblast this whole frame. Exciting news, ladies and gentlemen. I just dropped my engine off at the Rebuilders. The place I took it to is called Mailer Engine Service in Collingdale, Pennsylvania, which is very close to where I live. The place came in recommended by one of you guys. I can't remember who it was, but I took it to them. I got a good rundown from the boss about what he thought it needed. Place is real clean, beautiful shop, lots of neat equipment. They're going to clean it, degrease it even further than what I already have done. Magnaflux the block, which check for cracks, and then they're going to get into the nitty-gritty with the machine work. The price that I was quoted initially is well below what I expected and well within my budget, and I'm looking forward to having this engine running like a top here in no time flat. Get your motor running. Well, what we have here is one completely disassembled transmission. 4-speed manual, come off the Power Wagon. Everything is in decent shape from what I can tell. The bearings are in good shape, spin quietly. The gears do have rust in a few spots on them. Apparently that's pretty common. But I'm just going to go through and get all these parts into the old parts washer, get everything cleaned. I need to order a gasket kit. This thing probably has 15 different gaskets that it needs. And got to replace the snap rings. Just a couple odds and ends, but I'll have this thing running good after I put it back together. Fingers crossed. So thanks to the parts washer that I picked up, I've gotten all of these transmission parts clean in record time. This would have taken me days, just before I got this parts washer. But maybe an hour or two. Everything's squeaky clean. Covered in a nice thin layer of diesel, which is just thin oil if you think about it. So it'll preserve these parts, keep them from rusting until I'm ready to get to painting them. I'm going to start out putting a nice thick layer of oil-based paint on these gears. And then the one with the smaller teeth will take the paint a little bit better, keep it nice and preserved from rusting. You don't want it to shift too smoothly. You just want a nice thick layer of paint on all the moving parts. That's the best way to keep it from, rotting away, rusting away. We have to preserve these antiques for the future by painting all the moving parts. That's just all you have to do. This part, this cast piece, we're just going to leave that as is.
Just leave it with a little bit of oil on it. If it gets rusty, it gets rusty, you know? I found the floor underneath my truck. I have a quick message for the previous owner. Pay $2 more and get the undercarriage washed next time, dude. Unreal. So for those of you who don't really know me, I'm just being silly. What's up, InstaFam? So I'm digging around in the transmission and specifically the PTO, power takeoff unit. Takes power off the transmission to power the winch and anything in the rear off of the shafts. And this is the parts truck, and I'm trying to get this thing off. I've been up to my butt in grease and nasty, and I just freed up all these screws. Oh man, I was trying to show you this live, but I'm gonna have to beat on this thing a little bit to free it up. Stay tuned. Yes, but real quick. Gross. Okay, we're back in the fight with some proper tools. Okay, and there she blows. Let's see a gasket in there. Get the old screwdriver here and give her a wee pry. And hopefully she'll kind of just fall off without breaking. We'll see. Maybe I should get underneath and just catch her. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, here we go. Yeesh. Okay, so there's some gears there. I can see that I do not want to break. I gotta let you guys go. I need my hands back. Stay tuned, she's coming off. All right, full water. That's not a good sign initially, but whatever. I'll take it. Let's get her off on the bench, have another look. Okay, here we are on the healing bench, and this thing is nasty. Filled with water. The transmission was completely full of water. It flushed for about 15 seconds, just clean, clear water before the oil came out. So that's probably bad, but looks like it's all here. And I'm gonna get her apart and get her clean. Well, she's filthy, so we're gonna give her a bath for a while. I got the heat cooking. This thing's got a nice immersion heater inside of it to get this thing nice and warm. Get all this gross crap off of here. And then we can actually start taking her apart. She's nice and squeaky on the outside, if nothing else. In the meantime, do a little sandblasting with my tiny, tiny compressor that's gonna be running nonstop. Looking forward to that. Oh, parts washer, you're the one. You make bath time and diesel fuel lots of fun. Oh, parts washer, I'm awfully fond of you. All right, now that you've been serenaded, let's get down to brass tacks here. This thing's pretty cool. We've got a Chelsea Products Incorporated PTO. Now, I don't know if that's the original one from the factory, but this is definitely an added-on piece of the original truck. You can see we've got some provenance here. Stimmel Winch Company, Long Island, New York. It gives me the exact model number so I can look that up. That's super cool. But it's starting to clean up nicely. Actually finding a little bit of original paint left. So this is going to be repainted red at some point. I have to make sure this actually fits my transmission, as the transmission on the parts truck is different than the transmission on my my original truck with the original trans. So we will see how that goes. Gears look decent on initial inspection, but we got some more cleanup to do, so back at it. Love that data plate. Presenting Chelsea Products Incorporated of Chelsea, Michigan, Power Takeoff. Who would have thought? If you're not watching the story kind of sequentially, go back and watch the story from before. This thing looked like a pie, and it was. But she's actually pretty serviceable. Despite being full of water on the inside, everything looks like it's in good shape. The gears aren't chewing up. Here, take a look at this. This is not a factory item. I think this was put on after the fact by the Stimmel Winch Company of Long Island, New York. Even got a model number on there, which is super cool. I haven't really broken into this thing completely yet, and I'm going to at some point soon, but priority now, it's not a priority, but my next thing on the agenda is getting this trans case all cleaned up and getting her slapped back together. I got gaskets, I got gasket sealant, We're gonna make this happen. Stick around. So while my phone was broken, I was pretty busy. I pulled the axles off of the frame and I got to cleaning this thing up using wire wheels on my angle grinder and my die grinder. Got in and just started going to town on this thing, getting all the crud off of it, getting it nice and cleaned up so that it can be painted. And people out there in Instagram land, I'm looking for recommendations on a proper undercoat for this frame. I've seen some horror stories of guys having their frames coated and having them rot from the inside out. I am not trying to have that happen to me. So if you have any recommendations on a spray-on undercoat for this frame, please tell me. I'm all ears. Kind of cool, got the old door down. Really brings the space back to the 40s. I'm assuming when that door was placed in, when this place was a 6-truck storage building. Kind of nice to be able to work on old trucks in this space again as it was intended to be used or was used at one point or another. Anyway, I've got the frame here on its side so I can get into all these spaces on the rails more easily with my grinder. And kind of funny, this boxed in support member dumped out a bunch of mouse habitat remains. So it'll be interesting to see as these continue to be cleaned how much stuff comes out. But that one is chock full of mice housing. Anyway, what else? Since my phone died, the transmission got fully rebuilt. Well, not fully, it's not done yet. I've left these openings open because I need to get the power takeoff put back together. Got everything gasketed with a gasket kit in addition to some gasket Permatex sealant. You saw the post about the transmission and how it runs. New main seal in there. This thing is going to be going like a champ. Got to place a call in with the Chelsea Products Company. They're still around. And I'm looking to get a new gasket kit for this PTO. And yeah, this thing's kind of a mess. The parts are in great shape, but it's just all over the place. And I didn't get to take any pictures because the phone was dead. Maybe a little bit foolhardy doing that, but whatever. I'm going to figure it out. No problems. Stay tuned. It's a beautiful day. And it's been a very productive day here at the shop. So this frame has been from top to bottom, inside and out, wire wheeled with different kinds of wire wheels, different kinds of devices driving those wheels. All the rust is off. I'd say 80% of the original paint is off. There's still some stuff sort of stuck in different places here and there, but it's all been kind of leveled out. And we are ready now to go to the next phase, which is going to be degreasing this entire thing and doing paint prep. So I need some advice from those of you out there. Guidance on coat for the truck. I've heard about Pour 15. I've heard about a couple other ones. I saw a few different products from Rust-Oleum today, and I just want to know what your guys' thoughts are. Shoot me a message in the doobly-doo. For those of you who haven't seen the outside of the shop, this is it. A residential street here in South Philly. This is the original door. It's down. It's not usually down. Usually stored kind of overhead. Cool old sign. And it's been an exciting day getting these trucks worked on. Cannot wait to get this thing up and driving. The process is amazing though, so I'm not trying to rush it. Even though I'm flying through, it seems. Yep. Parts and restoration. Philadelphia represent. Super quick story tonight. Front axle here, rear axle here, front leaf springs, rear leaf springs with the helper springs that I'm getting rid of. All the tires, everything's been broken down. I'm going to continue breaking these down in the days to come. But just took a quick little night at the shop, get a little bit of work done, a little bit of progress each day. I'm heading home. Axles, free to go. If you like that video, take some time to check out my other ones. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I usually figure it out. Thanks for watching.